welcome to 2021. I am thrilled to be joined by my good friend Kyle Walton, representing the Libertarian side for Refounding Fathers. Welcome, Kyle. It's good to see you, buddy.
Yeah. Hey, thanks. Glad to be here, Wes.
And then it's great to see Chris Souza. Chris, how are you, buddy? Good to see you.
Doing really well. Happy New Year, guys.
Yeah, Happy New Year. So it has been a wild 2021 already for me, even though we're only, 3 days into it now. So I haven't had a chance to tell you guys really, because the last time that we talked was back before Christmas, I think. But I tested positive for COVID. I was feeling pretty crappy last Monday, and then even doing the show. But yeah, I ended up going to get tested on Tuesday, and ended up getting the results back a couple days later. So I am actually currently in isolation now. That's why I got the beard going. And first couple days was rough, but I'm actually starting to feel pretty good. But yeah, it's wild. I got on my phone, I've got this app that they made me download, and it does the contact tracing. And then my wife had symptoms, so she was down. But it was confusing, guys. I didn't obviously didn't know until I got the results back. I was like, maybe it's just a cold or something, but ended up being COVID. And all I can say is that everyone starts to treat you differently when they think you have COVID and stuff. Like, what's it like? Are you gonna live? And for a lot of people, I guess it is pretty rough. For us, it wasn't. We got past it in a few days, but we've been taking it easy and just resting here and stuff. So I'm very thankful my kids don't have any symptoms if they were positive. I guess they were, but they've been running around having fun. They don't even know the difference. But yeah, so that's 2021 for me so far.
Man, so sorry that you got the vid, man. But glad you're feeling okay. Glad you're in recovery.
Yeah, it's wild. So the way that they tested me was, I was actually feeling better. About Wednesday, and I was like calling my boss, "Hey, I'm going to come in for work," and he was like, "Nah, man, you need to get tested." There was a meeting that we had, and we had masks and everything on, and this was about a week and a half ago, and they were like, "Yeah, several people have tested positive from that meeting, so we need you to go get tested before you can come back into work." So I was like, "Okay, I'll do it." And they did a drive up testing. So you
Yeah.
you go on to the base, and then they basically get your information. They get these guys with like the full nuclear
Yeah. Like
Holocaust.
hazmat suits. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And
Full
then
on pandemic movie. Yeah,
yeah, and then they
yeah.
had like this long rod thing, and they were like, "Okay, just close your eyes and exhale deeply." I was like, "Okay," and then immediately they like shove it up your nose, like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was it. My wife hated it. But I actually didn't mind it. I was like, "Oh, that feels pretty good. Can you do the other one while you're there? Just like clean it up." So I did that, and then I had to wait. I think it was 3 days before I actually got the results back. I was hoping it was going to be a rapid one.
Mhm.
It wasn't. What's crazy though is now my wife got tested, and we're actually hoping that she tests positive, because if she doesn't, she tests negative, then she has to wait 2 weeks before she can go back to work.
No,
If
man,
it's
that stinks.
positive,
Yeah.
then technically it's based on symptoms, which her symptoms were the same as mine, like the same day practically. So she'd be allowed to go back when I do, which is going to be this coming week. So,
Hmm.
but I get the precautions and everything that they're doing now. I will say that I'm a lot more relaxed getting COVID now versus when this thing first kicked off. Because now
Sure.
there's letters and there's a process, and I don't have to explain it to my boss. He gets it, and all that stuff. But
Yeah, and it sounds
Mm.
like you have a mild case, which is, somewhat reassuring. Now you don't have to worry as much about getting a worse case down the line. I mean, I know you can still be reinfected as far as the science goes, I think, but
yeah,
hopefully you'll have a vaccine before that even becomes an issue. I have a relative right now who is hospitalized
yeah.
with COVID at the
Oh
moment,
man.
so we're praying for her, and we'll be praying
Yeah.
for your family.
Yeah, yeah. We've had definitely a lot of people, here in Florida who've gotten it in our area, Northwest Florida. There has been a few folks that like go to our church and stuff, where they've had a death in the family, and it is very sad. It's definitely something to be taken very seriously. It's all over the map in terms of symptoms. Like, we had our taste the entire time. I've heard a lot of people, you know, lose their sense of taste that didn't happen to us. I felt sore for 3 days. It was like I had lifted weights the wrong way, or something like that. Like, I was just, and then of course exhaustion. So I was like, man, I don't know, but now, like you said, now So looks like we got 5 or 6 folks that are watching live. So if you've been through it, if you've had COVID and all the symptoms and stuff, let me know. I'm curious to hear, your story through it now that I've been through it myself and kind of understand it. And then, what are your thoughts in terms of going forward? Are you still going to get the vaccine? When's that going to happen? Let me know. But yeah, I'm just grateful. My wife was upset because we lost all this time working and stuff, and I was like, just be grateful that
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
we're not having
for
to
sure.
go to the ICU or the ER and all this stuff. So, and I guess that's my mantra for 2021 is being grateful for what I do have, and
Yeah.
and all that. So anyway, so kind of a long intro there, but definitely something that's big in my life. But it's fun to be able to do this show because I can't leave. I can't leave the house. Can't talk to anybody. So I'm so grateful for having this show because we can actually talk through all kinds of things that are going on. And there's been a lot. There's been a lot going on. So I want to go through.
Sure.
I'll go through one topic, and I'll get your take on it, guys. And then I know Chris has got one as well. He's going to introduce us too. So because I've been home, with the vid, I've had a chance to read and follow the news a little closer than normal, and I'll go through what's coming up in the next week. It's really going to be fascinating to watch DC over the next several days. If this election was a show, I think would be coming up on the season finale because it's really coming to a head. Uh, Back in previous elections, senators and congressmen and congresswomen have had an opportunity to to contest election results, but very very few have ever done that. There's one time in recent history where that occurred, and it was Senator Boxer who wanted to challenge essentially by herself in the Senate with one congressperson election results for George Bush just to draw attention to possible fraud in Ohio. And this was years ago against George W. Bush. But it didn't go very far. It was more ceremonial, that type of thing, or trying to symbolize, solidarity with people who had not had their votes counted properly. What we are talking about for this coming week is the potential of 11 to 12 different senators, led by Senators Hawley and Senator Ted Cruz, to challenge the election results with over 100 congresspeople in D.C. And what this could set up is the potential for a vote, in which case the Senate and the House vote uh, based on their credibility or how they see the credibility of the election results. And it's going to put Mike Pence, the vice president, in a very interesting, precarious spot because Mike Pence, as the vice president, head of the Senate, normally certifies the election results. And typically, this is just kind of a very quick type of thing. It's more just ceremonial. Thank you. I've received election results. And then now we move on with our lives. But Mike Pence is being pressured. And with over 100 people in the Senate contesting these results, he's going to be in a very interesting position as to whether he certifies the election results, which effectively ends his job, or if he goes along with it and uses his position as head of the Senate more than ceremonial and actually uses it to go along with this, and it opens up a debate. What these senators are calling for is an audit. They want essentially a 10 to 12-day audit of the election results. They want to put together a commission and then take a look at each state's results with obviously particular focus on those states that were subjects of controversy, like Georgia, like Arizona, where the president has said repeatedly that he won and the states are saying, no, you didn't. That's what they want to look at. They want to look at instances of fraud, disputes, all this type of thing. So I bring it to you guys. We'll start with Kyle on this. Is how do you see this going? Do you see this as, hey, let's just, put our votes down so that it's on record? Or do you think that this could really blow up into a huge controversy that lasts for, I don't know, days that actually has ramifications for, the future of our country? What do you think?
Well, I don't think it ends poorly for the Republicans in any way, shape, or form. I don't think this is a good thing for the Republicans moving forward, especially with those seats in Georgia. in play right now for election day on Tuesday. I don't think this helps their cause there. I definitely don't think this helps the cause of Republicans going forward to the midterms in 2 years or even down the line in 4 years for the next election. Honestly, it looks like being a poor loser. It looks like just being a sore loser and not wanting to accept the results. I think we've talked about this several episodes now that yes, we understand that there was elements of fraud. There was some fraud. There was likely not enough fraud to sway any of these states one way or another. So, I think there is a time and a place to ask for an investigation or an audit of those states' records. I don't think now is the time to do it, especially now
When would
where
the
those Georgia Senate seats open.
when would the time be? Because
Sometime during the next congressional term.
well, when
Again, because I don't. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, do you think that, I mean, with Pelosi, the Democrats maintaining, the House, do you think they would really get any traction with a Biden administration and a Democrat-led House, that they would actually get any traction on investigating election fraud or the results after this vote? Because to me, it really seems like this is their last stand. And to push back a
Yeah.
little bit on that narrative, I mean, I definitely understand where you're coming from, but Trump has billed himself consistently as a fighter, and there is this narrative of election fraud that he has pushed, that his administration has pushed, that so many people believe in, and at the same he may run afoul of some moderates and obviously liberals, but at the same time his base is expecting him to fight for what he believes in. And don't you see a chance, an opportunity to rally his base by doing this, by fighting the way he always has?
Yeah, maybe that could be true, but I honestly don't see his base as the future of the Republican Party.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as someone who's more conservative leaning or libertarian leaning conservative, however you want to call it, I found myself going more libertarian as populism became the strain of the Republican Party. And I don't see the MAGA folks really leading the party going forward. Obviously, you have people like Holly, but if people like Cruz take over again, then I think then we're gonna leave that MAGA stuff behind and get back to some sort of traditional conservatism.
Interesting. What do you
Yeah.
think, Chris, on the whole situation?
I certainly hope you're right, Kyle. I think these people definitely think that this is going to help them in the long run. They are very used to just playing to their base and winning that way. If that didn't work for them, they wouldn't be where they are right now. They certainly don't care about doing what's best for America. Most of these congressmen know that this is going to go nowhere. They know Biden will be inaugurated on January 20th. Maybe some of them are true believers in, this widespread voter fraud. But I think the majority of them know that there was not enough to make a difference in this election. And they're just playing the most cynical politics imaginable with no thought about what the majority of Americans want or how this will affect and diminish our democracy in the future. They are saying that our most sacred institutions are not real and that they have no legitimacy. And they know that that is not true. So I really hope that Kyle is right and that there is a better way forward for the Republican Party. I'm not necessarily sanguine on that prospect, but I do think we have reached a tipping point, hopefully, where just playing to that radical fringe extremist base is no longer a tenable or workable solution and will no longer achieve them victory.
Yeah, I mean, the narrative has come that from the Trump administration that fraud occurred, and that's why Biden won. And if that's the narrative that you believe, then this makes sense, right? This is the next logical step. If you don't believe that, right, then it doesn't. But for people who actually who believe this, who believe that fraud happened on a widespread scale, and if they're following Newsmax or whatever it is, right, where this is talked about often, then it makes sense, right? It makes sense to be able to push against these results. So um, that's where it's coming from. It all depends on what do you think, about that first question of did fraud occur at a large scale. If you say absolutely not, right, then why would these people do it? But if that's your base, if that's your constituents, if that's the people that are going to elect you, uh, you know, then I think you have to make a stand on it, and that's what these folks are doing. talking about the future of the Republican Party, though, I think that's a fascinating question. And if you want to see the Republican Party at war with itself, there is a phone call that Chris you brought to my attention between President Trump himself and several of his top lawyers, and then several top Georgia state officials talking about the results of the election. And Chris, I'm gonna let you talk about it. And I was listening to it before the show, so I've definitely got some thoughts. So I'll shift it over to you for that topic. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this just came out today. This is breaking news. This was a conversation between President Trump and Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State for Georgia, who's gotten a lot of attention for just utterly refusing to enable these fake voter fraud shenanigans and denouncing this false narrative and really taking a strong stance and saying in speeches that this is causing people to get death threats and it is going to get somebody killed. The conversation also involved several lawyers, as well as Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows. And it was basically, very similar to previous phone calls that we've seen from President Trump, such as his phone call with Ukraine that led to his impeachment, where he was asking them to open up an investigation into Joe Biden and announce that investigation in order to affect the election. It also kind of reminded me of during the 2016 campaign, where Trump said in a speech, Russia, if you're listening, hopefully you can find, all of those emails that Hillary deleted. And that in and of itself was also an attempt to get foreign actors to meddle in an election in 2016. And now he's at it again, even though it is post-election. And he is demanding that Brad Raffensperger find, I hope you can find, over 11,000 votes in my favor. Just so happens to be the number of votes that Biden won by. I think it was something like 11,079 votes. And so Trump asked Brad Raffensperger to find 11,080. And that's how you know that President Trump is genuinely concerned with this issue of fraud and just wants an objective look at the facts and not something that will just swing things in his favor. It was totally corrupt. It was mob boss tactics. I don't know if it crosses the line into a crime. I certainly hope so that this man will face some kind of legal accountability once he is out of office.
Yeah. So I had a chance to listen to almost the entire call. I made it about an hour in before we had to start the show, and what you had was Trump walking through his thought process of what got him to the point that he wanted to have this phone call, and he was basing it off of the rallies that he had been to. He was basing it off of assurance that he had won Georgia. And then he talked often about other states and what he's been encountering and things like that. And then the messaging that he's getting from his legal team. And then you had the Georgia, secretary and several other top officials who eventually pushed back on that. And it got very personal, very heated pretty quickly. And it got to a point where it was obvious that both teams weren't communicating. On the Trump side, several of his lawyers were saying, we've never seen this. We haven't seen the data. You did an investigation. We've never seen the results of your investigation. And then on the Georgia side, they were constantly attacking the facts and figures, that the Trump people were telling the president. And so it was very interesting to see how contentious this thing was. And so, Kyle, when you talk about the future of the Republican Party, I think it's at war with itself right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
What does the future of the Republican Party look like? I wouldn't be so quick though to dismiss the MAGA crowd, if that's what you want to call it, from the future, because there's already rumors that Trump's daughters are going to run for Senate seats. You've obviously got his two sons who have been very active. And then people like Matt Gaetz, who represents my district, numerous other. I mean, you look at these 11 senators that are joining Hallie, right? The hundreds, of Republican officials and congressmen and women who are going to make this vote, symbolic or not, in the next few days. I think it's a very powerful force. And then there's the chance that Trump could run again in 2024, right? Like that's certainly a possibility. So I really don't think it's going anywhere. And I think that, and this could be a whole other show, it didn't just start with Trump either, right? You can go back
That's
to
right. Yep.
Palin, Newt Gingrich, all these other, folks who have been part of building up this base, Rush Limbaugh and the rest.
Yep.
So it's definitely not just going to go by the wayside. It's going to go out fighting like this. But this is not going to be the last fight. I want to get to a couple comments before we wrap it up for today. Um, Charles Littner is on here, and he said, if any fraud at all occurred, then it taints the entire process. So decide for yourself if it was enough fraud or not is not very smart. We've talked before about how there's fraud in
Yeah.
every election. Every single election has some level of fraud. The question is how much fraud was enough, and was it enough to actually change a result? And that's, if you guys recall, I've said this before, that if we were talking about one state, then this would be, there'd be a lot of heat and controversy. If it came down to Pennsylvania and Philadelphia with a long history of corruption in its electoral politics, I think we'd be having a very different conversation as opposed to numerous states. And you saw that in the phone call, Chris, is like Trump said, I can't believe I'm having to fight this hard just for Georgia. I thought it was in the bag, and this one should be easy because we're only talking about 11,000 votes as opposed to Pennsylvania, where it's a lot more. Same thing for Arizona and other states. And then Charles also said, Chris, I think you watched too much CNN because you're singing the same song they do. I haven't watched CNN. I really don't. That's not something I've been doing.
I honestly don't watch them a lot either. I find them kind of tacky and obnoxious, but
Yeah. So, I respect your opinion, though. We'll see how this plays out. It's definitely going to be an interesting few days. It's going to be the ramifications for this. My last thought for you guys is just to consider the future of elections in this country. I mean, how will the right wing, how will Republicans ever be able to trust an election again? Right? Like, how will we ever get to a point as a country where we trust it? Because it feels to me like if the left loses an election, foreign interference is going to be the mantra, and if the right loses, the election, then it's going to be voter fraud. And how do we
Yep.
ever get to a point where there's a common core, where there's a safe election, one where you may not get the results that you want? I mean, you see that with Georgia, Kyle. You can see that if the Democrats pull out the Senate seats, then again, it's going to be more of the same immediately, a voter fraud. So what this does to our democracy is kind of an open-ended question, I think. So, but I'll let you guys have the last words, Kyle, and then Chris, go for it and close this out.
Sure. Yeah, I do think there are things that both parties should be able to get behind in making sure that our elections, which Chris referred to as our most sacred democratic processes, are held safe. And I think that there are some things that can be done, but I don't think. Well, I think one side in particular doesn't want those things done. Things like voter ID laws, which are common sense to me. A certain registration process that you have to register X amount of days before an election. Someone's going to call voter suppression on that, but those things seem to be pretty common sense to me. All that to be said, I think it's interesting when things stick around too long. I'm watching season 3 of Cobra Kai right now, and it is not very good. Saw Wonder Woman 84 the other night. It was kind of a letdown, and watched the last season of The Crown, and it's also not very good. So let's just say that the longer things seem to be sticking around, the less good they are. I don't know what that has to do with politics. I just wanted to get that
Well,
out
hey,
there.
there you go. I'm looking forward to that because that'd be some fun material to get into. I just started season 3 for Cobra Kai, so maybe we'll do that on our next show and start getting into that stuff. That'll be a lot of fun. How about you, Chris?
yeah, I watched the New Year's special of Doctor Who the other day, and
Nice.
man, did it stink. So yeah, that needs a break as well. It's gone on for almost 60 years now, 12 seasons or 13 seasons of
Yeah.
the reboot. So yeah, that needs to end. And to answer your question from earlier, Wes, how does the Republican Party, how do Republicans trust in our election process again? They need leaders who are going to tell them the truth and who aren't afraid to tell them the truth, regardless of whether it's what they want to hear. So we need more like Brad Raffensperger and much fewer like Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, and all of these Republicans who are denying reality.
Yeah, and I think it's got to happen in terms of how we communicate with people who disagree with us, right? We've got to be able to work on common projects together. And again, that's why this show is so important. Is we're demonstrating that we're showing how conservatives, liberals, and libertarians can get together and have a conversation. about the election, even if we disagree strongly. And I'm sure we will about Wonder Woman 1984. So I'm looking forward to that topic and everything else we get to talk about. So, hey, thank you guys. Thanks for the show. For those that watched this, looks like we had about 6 or 7 folks that watched live tonight. Thanks for the comments from Charles. Take a look at thebreakingconservative.com. Don't forget our YouTube channel. Obviously, we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram as well. Send us any comments that you like, any thoughts on the show, and any topics that you want us to cover next time. So thank you guys so much, and I will see you next week.